They're not good enough to start. They're not even good enough to play. But they do talk a good game. So come join Lou and Jose from the sidelines where all the best sports discussions happen anyway. Welcome in to the Benchwarmerz podcast.
Welcome into the program, everybody. I am Lou Ruggieri. That is Jose Ortiz. And this is the Benchwarmerz podcast. Wherever, whenever, and however you happen to be listening, we appreciate you taking some time to spend it with us. We are going to try to make it worth your while. And we have quite the show. It's NFL stocked, packed, ready to go. Tons of NFL news. Obviously, it was the big wild card weekend, so we're going to touch on all the games. We have to look forward to the divisional round next week, some NBA talk in the second hour. But this hour, we're just going to jump right in. We have 6 games to break down, so we're going to do them sort of in just reverse order, essentially. And we're going to touch on the Browns first, and then going to go through from last to first as it happened this last weekend. Hopefully, you're following along on either the iHeartRadio podcasting app or Amazon Podcasts. You can find us pretty much wherever podcasts are available. So if you're listening to us, good job, you found us. Reviews are appreciated, as always. I know everyone says that and does that, but a little shameless self-promotion. We try hard, so we like to get some feedback. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, at the Benchwarmerz Podcast, at the BW Pod on Twitter, or you can email us, the Benchwarmerz Podcast at yahoo.com, Benchwarmerz with a Z. And Jose, we're just jump right in, man. Let's hit it and hit it hard. And first off, we don't have top 5 news stories. We have top 6 games, so we're just gonna get into it. The Browns took on the big bad Steelers, and the Browns made the Steelers just look bad. I mean, this game we kind of talked a little earlier today, and this game to me we had the exact same reaction. I'm sure a lot of other people did too because the similarities, but it felt like the Broncos Seahawks Super Bowl with the obviously, the first pass going over the head of the quarterback. In the Broncos game, it was the Super Bowl and it was a safety, and in this game it was a touchdown over Ben Roethlisberger's head. And I mean, this game was out of control early. I mean, it's 28-0, the most points scored in a quarter in playoff history, I believe. 35-7. You felt like this. I kept thinking, okay, the Steelers are going to remember who they are, and the Browns are going to remember who they are, and eventually and they didn't. The Steelers brought it within 12, I think, a couple times, but I don't. It's crazy. Ben Roethlisberger threw 68 passes, 500 yards, 4 interceptions, it just drops. And this, for a team that started off 11-0, that was not good.
It's about as bad of an ending as you can have to such a promising season. And I believe there were numerous things that worked that kind of derailed the Steelers season. And first and foremost, the age of Big Ben. Listen, not every quarterback can be like Tom Brady and still be the bionic man at age 43. Big Ben's 38 years old. You can't ask normal quarterbacks, even when they're Hall of Famers, to go out and throw 600 passes at age 38. I believe this offense hit a wall mid-season and weren't really ever able to kind of get back to where they were. And in this game, right from the beginning, they were in obvious must-pass situations. And that's not what you want for any quarterback, really. But never mind a quarterback who's, at least the offense has looked clearly gassed the entire second half of this season. Then you add in the fact that they can't really run the ball at all. It was just a complete beatdown by the Browns in all facets of the game. It's weird because I picked the Steelers to win this game. You picked the Browns to win this game. I just felt like the Steelers had their number. The Browns were dealing with COVID issues. They had players drag racing. They had all this stuff. But they showed up and they were hungry and full of energy. And just, when you get a team that's an underdog that, has not fared well in these situations, and then you spot them 28 points in the first quarter, it's amazing what confidence can do to a person and to a team. And they were immediately believing, probably before they were up 20, they were up 14-0. Like, this is our game. This is our game. We can beat these guys. And eventually, it just was too much to overcome for the Steelers. where I just don't really know where they go from here.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I took away from this game, and one of which is with 14 seconds into the game, it's 7-0. I was like, whoa! What just happened? You turn around and they're just piling on points, and overall it was 5 turnovers, and like you said, the running game is the problem. Ben Roethlisberger threw 68 times, which just for context is the 4th highest passing attempts in a single game of all time.
Wow.
And it actually broke. Do you know whose record it broke in the playoffs? Ben Roethlisberger broke a playoff single game attempt record. He broke it was the previous.
Oh. Go ahead. Well, I was going to say that maybe it was Frank Reich, just because of that comeback against the Oilers.
January 6th, 1996.
January 6th, 1996.
Yeah, this quarterback is near and dear to your heart.
Oh, Steve Young has got to be there.
Steve Young, 65 pass attempts versus the Green Bay Packers.
Yep, and we lost that game. I remember that game. Once you said the Packers, that's a game we lost, I'm pretty sure.
As are most teams that are going to be passing 68, 69. The number one, by the way, is Drew Bledsoe with 70 pass attempts in the regular season. Yeah, 1994 against the Vikings. Crazy.
Oh.
But the Steelers, it's fascinating in a way because the Steelers do have a very good receiving core. I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster at 13 receptions, 157 yards. Deontay Johnson, 11 receptions, 117 yards. Ebron caught passes. Chase Claypool had 2 touchdowns. Like, they have a good team. They just can't run the ball whatsoever. James Conner, 11 carries for 37 yards. And then, granted, you're down big early, so the running game is kind of moot at that point anyway.
Yeah.
But there's just, you're letting the Browns just sit back and dictate. Steelers just looked like they forgot to get off the plane.
Well, and honestly, the other thing I was thinking about too is you get down 7-0. Okay. It sucks. It's 14 seconds in. You get down 7-0. That doesn't excuse the rest of what happened. You got to put some points on the board. If you're the Steelers, you're Ben Roethlisberger. Your season's on the line. Yeah, you got punched in the mouth early. It's kind of like Rocky knocking down Apollo in round 1 of the. I'm dating myself here, but round 1 of Rocky 1, he knocks him down, kind of shocks him, like, whoa, this guy came here to fight. They just never punched back. It was too late by the time they really started fighting back. I'm not sure if the Browns defense just, maybe they just showed up really, really, really well to, I don't know. I don't know what it was, but for whatever reason, the Steelers just never really rebounded and recovered quickly enough. By the time they started scoring, the game was over basically midway through the second quarter. Yeah. So it's just surprising to me that the Steelers never really bounced back and never really kind of put up a fight and made this. I know they got within 12, but it never really felt that close. I just want to take my hat off to my boy, Baker Mayfield, threw another 3 touchdowns, no picks. I'm very, very happy for this team, very happy for Baker, and just happy for the fan base that they got the job done and now have an even much bigger task next week, this coming week against the Chiefs.
Yeah, I do applaud the Browns. I was happy for them because it felt like watching almost like the original Karate Kid or something, where it's like this Cobra Kai guy.
Dating herself.
Yeah. No. Well, Cobra Kai's new though. It's relevant.
Okay,
so.
That's true. Yeah,
but you're watching Danielson get his head kicked in, at every turn, and all of a sudden, now it's. I think Al Michaels said it best. Beginning of midway through the first quarter, he said something to the effect of, it feels like 18 years of frustration is being taken out on the field right now, and that's what it looked like. And this game, actually, along with a couple other games we're about to talk about, I do feel like home field advantage played a part because I find it hard to believe that if that stadium was full of Steelers fans, the Browns would have been able to be that dominant that early and not. I feel like the crowd would have made a difference. I don't think maybe enough of a difference, but certainly would have impacted the game on some level.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but at the same time, Big Ben threw 4 interceptions. I can't imagine there's too many quarterbacks who have thrown 4 interceptions and have won that game. I don't know what the stat is, but I'm sure there's some stat somewhere that gives the record of quarterbacks who threw 4 interceptions in a game.
It's probably not good. Yeah.
No, I can imagine that.
And we have a lot of offseason to talk about, but Steelers are gonna have to make a decision on Ben Roethlisberger very quickly. I think March 15th, he's due a $15 million roster bonus. So, they can do a number of things. They can not pay him and tell him, let's part ways here. He does have one more year in his contract. Maybe they give him some sort of built-in extension with that money involved. I don't know, but I don't know how to. I mean, such a crazy season.
Yeah.
It feels a lot like the Seahawks season in a weird way. Like they started off so well and so hot, and I guess it's more akin to the Patriots of last year, where they Patriots started off 8-0.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone was, crowning them, and then they just got punched in the mouth by the Titans in the playoffs. So this game, similar. But
I don't really know what you do if you're the Steelers right now.
I don't know how to wrap up the season. How do you look back to what you can't say it was a success. You were 11-0.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't a success, especially with a quarterback like Big Ben. It's Super Bowl or bust at this point in his career. He's not playing to go 11-5, and even if they had won and then lost in the next round, it still would have been disappointing. At this stage in your career, you're only playing for Super Bowls. The same thing with Mike Tomlin, a guy who's also late in his career, or not late, but not like he's old, but has played a long time, has coached a long time, and so they came up pretty short. And I don't really know, because it would be easy to say, "Oh, just let Big Ben walk." There's a big drop off from him to Mason Rudolph.
You can't. Mason Rudolph cannot be your starting quarterback.
Well, what I'm saying is there's just not quarterbacks growing on trees. Yeah. We've just seen that it's hard to find a really good quarterback, and they're going to lose James Conner probably because they're not going to sign him. Marquise Pouncey is going to retire. It could be a complete rebuild right now. It could be that bad.
Yeah, they have a good defense. I hate to see them waste. They gave up a second-round pick for Minkah Fitzpatrick to the Dolphins.
First-round pick.
Was it a first-round pick? Oh, it was a first round. Right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And they have T.J. Watt there, who is in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year. They have a really good defense, and it would be a shame. And they have a really good receiving core. I don't think that a rebuild is necessary. I think you just have to, shore up that offensive line. You have to establish some kind of. There's a lot of free agent running backs that are coming on available. Mm-hmm. So I don't think James Conner is going to be back next year. And I think you update that quarterbacking position to somebody a little. I don't know. Ben just. I don't. There are only
like 4 good. If you're really like listing quarterbacks who are significantly better than Ben Roethlisberger, what is there, like 5 or 6? And you're not getting any of them. Right now, if you could take Ryan Tannehill, is he really that much better than Ben Roethlisberger? I don't think so.
No, I mean he's more dynamic, but the situation is what matters, and not in terms of the accrued longevity in a career, but right now, I mean, I think Ryan Tannehill is better than Ben Roethlisberger this season. I think that
didn't look that way on Sunday.
Or
Saturday.
We'll
get to that.
Yeah, they also played a pretty good team, but speaking of questionable quarterbacks, we're gonna move on to the Saints and the Bears. And this one, I mean, I feel like there's not a lot to say here. This game, first of all, I don't know why this game was on in the spot that it was on. This should have been the first game of Saturday. This was not an exciting game. This game went exactly how I expected it to. The Saints just kind of showed up and were like, all right, hey, Bears. The Bears defense played well. Mitch Trubisky played like crap. And the Bears just shot themselves in the foot. The Bears looked like offensively they didn't belong in the playoffs. The defense showed up and tried, but again, like we've seen pretty much all season, the defense was carrying the offense for the most part. And Anthony Miller gets kicked out of the game, and Sims, is that his name? He had Wims, Javon Wims.
Wims, with worst drop I've ever seen.
Oh my God, that was. You texted me. I watched the game later, and like I saw that message, and I was like, oh, I wonder what game he's watching. I didn't know what game you were watching. I didn't know what player you were referring to. And then when I saw that, I saw him drop that in the end zone. I was like, oh my God, that's what Jose was talking about. So bad, dude.
I could be hyperbolic, but I really think it's the worst drop I've ever seen. It is just so bad.
Context, because that would have tied the game up at 7, and who knows? Momentum is a real thing in the NFL. But
yeah, that's a drop that you have nightmares about if you're a wide receiver. That's just in your hands. No reason for you. No one's even on you.
Yeah.
But either way, the Bears didn't belong there at all. They were 1 for 10 on third down and had 48 rushing yards the entire game. It just felt like the Saints didn't even need to do anything. It's 21-9, so it looks like, it wasn't that big of a blowout. It just felt like the Saints kind of left it in third gear, second gear. They didn't have to do anything to win this game. And it's like you said, there's not too much to say, so I'll just go right to what do you do if you're the Bears. I think they're in a tough spot. They clearly have to draft a quarterback this offseason. They just paid Nick Foles. Obviously Mitch Trubisky is not the answer, and they're going to be picking in the bottom half of the league this year. I don't really know what to do other than, and I always say this, and you guys will catch on, got to get offensive line help. That's the only thing I think they can really do to try and get this team better, because good quarterbacks are just not available.
It's true, but I think that you can't settle for mediocrity either. And I think we've seen, and Mitch Trubisky does suffer from having been the second pick overall that year in 2017.
He suffers from being garbage. I mean,
but my point is,
no matter what pick he was,
if he was drafted in the 4th round, no one would. If he sucked and then he sucked, everyone would go, well, yeah, he was a 4th round pick. What do you? I mean, sometimes you get lucky, but sometimes you get what you pay for. Yeah. Because he was the second pick overall, it magnifies his bad play that much more because, I mean, it's been said to death. I mean, Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes, blah, 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 there's so many people that could have been taken, and, hindsight's 20/20, but the fact that he was the number 2 pick overall just makes it look so much worse. And the Bears have to just be who you are. You're not going to be, just because you wanted Patrick Mahomes or you wanted Deshaun Watson, you can't play like them or pretend like you have a guy like that. You have a team that's based on defense. I mean, it's the Bears. The Bears historically, great defense, strong running game. That's how they win. That's how they've won. And that's how they're going to win now. That David Montgomery showed up in the last bit of the season. They have Cordell Patterson, who's, whatever. I think they should still add someone else. But their receiving core is not great aside from Allen Robinson. And they just need to, but their defense is amazing.
And Allen Robinson's going to be leaving probably in free agency this offseason. He's not signed to a long-term contract. You can say ground and pound and say, we're going to play defense and running game. That is very, very hard to accomplish in today's NFL unless you have an elite level defense. And I'm not talking elite, like, I'm talking historically very good, like the Legion of Boom. Like, that's probably the last team that really used that won with that philosophy.
The Titans last year did pretty good.
They didn't win the Super Bowl with that philosophy.
No.
They did okay. They got to the AFC Championship game. That's fine. But and so you can have some success. And I guess if the Bears had gotten to the AFC Championship game, it would have been a success. But first of all, Ryan Tannehill is 10 times the quarterback that Mitch Trubisky is. That's just disrespectful that you would even compare them. We better hope that Ryan Tannehill does not call us about this, because that is just a bad comparison. But I mean, and also Derrick Henry, what is he, 50 times the running back that David Montgomery is? So it's just completely different offenses here.
Their defense is better than the Titans' defense.
That's true. That's true. I don't know if it's. It just seems like that's not a really reliable winning formula in today's NFL to say, hey, we're going to go with a strong defense and a powerful running game and a below average quarterback, and that's how we're going to win. That just doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they have to do better, and I think that's the way to do better. And it does depend on the quarterback, but we've seen that Mitch Trubisky is not the answer. So whether it's a quarterback in the draft this year, which is going to be tough because they made the playoffs, or if it's one of the free agents that are going to be out there, that you got to start somewhere. You're going to have but whoever it may be. I mean, you might have a quicker learning curve with a veteran quarterback, but if it's a rookie, you kind of have to default to that strategy anyway, because that's you can't expect not everybody's going to be Justin Herbert and come in and throw for 31 touchdowns. It's just you have to kind of baby them that first year and make it so they're not able to make, take away the mistakes that they can make as much as possible and let them grow slowly. Like we've seen, like Russell Wilson, like Ben Roethlisberger, like, there's so many that Dak Prescott.
You're naming Hall of Famers. You're naming guys on Hall of Fame tracks.
Dak Prescott is, his first year. They went, 13-3, and he basically just handed the ball to Zeke every game.
That's
so
fair. That's fair. Free agent quarterbacks next year: Phillip Rivers, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Jameis Winston, Cam Newton, Andy Dalton, Tyrod Taylor, Dak Prescott, who's probably going to get franchised, and Mitch Trubisky. There's just no one there.
Matt Ryan, Matt Stafford could
get traded.
Eventually get traded. Sam Darnold is probably on the block. Wow. But I could see the Bears. The Bears they're so bad at this. I could see the Bears trying to sign Cam Newton just because they're watching tape of 2015 Cam, and it just.
You definitely have to draft a quarterback and just hope that you get lucky. I worry that they're basically kind of one of these middling teams that are going to kind of stay in the middle and never really get a good draft pick for a few years.
It's possible. And on the other side of the ball, the Saints, the Saints looked good. They didn't look great. I thought their defense was good. Drew Brees looked okay. 38-39, 265 yards, 2 touchdowns. Not great, not bad. Kamara looked like, he was 23 carries, 99 yards, a touchdown. He looked pretty good. And they were good. Jared Cook had one run, I think, to get a first down where he just looked like a man amongst boys, which is hard to do against the Bears defense. But overall, the Saints, I didn't come away from this game really impressed with the Saints. I guess maybe I'm not giving enough credit to Chicago's defense, but they just looked good. They didn't look great. I wouldn't be scared of them.
Yeah, and I think that's the feeling I've had about the Saints all year long. I will say this about the Saints. I think that they were almost like if you had a Porsche and you just said, no, I don't really have to drive that fast. I can beat you by staying in third gear. And that's what they did.
Yeah.
I don't know why they did that, but it just felt like there was never any chance for the Bears to win. The offense was just doing nothing on the field.
Yeah, that's fair. So we'll see what happens. We have a lot of offseason to talk about, a lot of stuff to talk about the Saints next week going against Tom Brady. But the last game of Sunday, the Ravens avenge their playoff loss from last year. Lamar Jackson gets that monkey off his back and wins a playoff game like everyone has been telling him that he needs to. These two teams, to me, were decidedly mirrors of one another, with slight differences. But I think overall, in totality, they're kind of the same sort of setup. And the Ravens defense showed up. They shut Derrick Henry down, which, in December and January and February is not easy to do whatsoever. But Derrick Henry limited to 40 yards, 18 carries. The aforementioned Ryan Tannehill looked pedestrian, 18-26 for 165 yards, touchdown, interception. Meanwhile, Lamar Jackson on the other side just running roughshod over the Titans. Wasn't Jadeveon Clowney on the Titans? Didn't he go there? I feel like they got him specifically to help with the run defense, and nothing.
I swear I never heard his name at all this season. Any games I was watching, I forgot he was even on the team.
He didn't play in this game, but he was there early. So I don't know what happened to him, but I knew that they got him specifically to help with run defense, and well, here we are.
Yeah, you already mentioned the numbers on the offense. There's no reason to repeat it. It was a very, very disappointing performance from King Henry and Ryan Tannehill. And on the other side of the ball, I don't know what happened that the Ravens have just woken up, where they, over the last 6 games, they're just playing so much better. 236 rushing yards as a team, 136 from Lamar. We even saw them have some success in the passing game. Marquise Brown was over 100 yards, which seemed like the first time in forever that he was over that mark. They just seem to be playing their best football right now, and I'm not sure what happened to kind of switch that light switch on right now. And when I'm looking at the Titans right now, I almost feel like that they've already hit their ceiling. I can't see this team as constructed really making a Super Bowl run. I don't know. It just doesn't feel like they have that chance unless they can somehow get a Bears type defense, right? With that offense, if you could bring the Bears defense over, then you would have a chance, I think. But as constructed, it just feels like if Derrick Henry is not going off, like just destroying the defense and just wearing them down, Ryan Tannehill is not the type of quarterback who is going to beat you when you know he has to throw.
I mean, I think the Raiders might have something to say about that. There's a couple games there where it was the last game of the year where he threw that crazy.
Yeah, I mean that's true. That's fair. I mean, he can be. I guess he can get a nice throw here and there. I'm talking about good teams. Derrick Henry, but I'm talking about against good teams, right? Yeah. The Raiders, yeah, that's a weak team. I'm talking about against good playoff teams where I can't picture them beating the Chiefs. I can't picture them going in and beating the Bills right now, although the Bills didn't look great, and they did beat the Bills earlier this season. This was a game. It's not the Ravens put up 20 points. You've got to win that game if you're a good offense, right? They were fourth in the NFL, and I think they were second in the NFL in scoring. You've got to win that game if your defense holds the Ravens to 20 points. You've got to win that game.
Yeah, and I mean the Ravens just ran over. I think the running defense is the problem for the Titans right now. The Ravens rushed for 236 yards of total run game offense versus 51 for the Titans. I mean, they just beat them down. They had 5 sacks. The Ravens had 5 sacks allowed, which is, I guess, a little surprising. But even on third downs, the Ravens were better on third down. It feels like the Ravens defense, like you said, sort of stepped up and woke up, and they're kind of peaking at the right time. And while the Ravens won, I feel like the Titans should have won this game. I don't know. The Ravens seem like they're at the right moment. They're doing well, but maybe it's Marquise. I mean, Marquise Brown looks like he's a difference maker all of a sudden. Not that he never did, but there was a while there where it kind of was like, well, is he really that good? Is he not that good? And then he was injured, and he came back and was sort of ineffective, but he looks like he's rounding into form right now too. So that's going to be an interesting game next week for the Ravens.
That might be my favorite game of the weekend. The Bills against the Ravens. Yeah. Probably my favorite game of the weekend.
Yeah, that's going to be a showdown for sure. But it's.
I don't know. I'm looking at the Titans, and maybe you think they're better than I do. And I think in the offseason we both were a little unsure about what to expect from this team. They come out, they win their division. It looks like they close the season looking like, hey, we can maybe do something. And then they come out and put this dud out, and it kind of reminds you of what this offense is when Derrick Henry is not rushing for 100, whatever it is, 200 yards or 150 yards. When he's having a regular game or a below average game, and Ryan Tannehill has to go out and win the football game, it just doesn't go well.
Yeah, I mean that's hard to argue with, especially after a loss. So. Yeah. All right, we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back. We have to touch on the first 3 games of the weekend and wild card weekend. What are they calling it?
Super wild card.
Yeah. The two phrases I've heard all week have been super wild card or extra wild card, whatever it is. And then the megacast is the word of the week. That's the buzzword of the week. I just keep hearing megacast about college football and everything else, and we're putting all of these games on 900 places for you to watch them. It's like, okay, I don't want to hear that anymore. But we will touch on the other 3 games from the weekend's megacast when we come back. So stick around. We'll be right back on the Benchwarmerz podcast.
You can reduce your risk of COVID-19 by cleaning and disinfecting frequently touched items and surfaces every day. These items include remotes, tables, counters, light switches, doorknobs, handles, toilets, and sinks. Wear disposable gloves to clean and disinfect. If you can see that the item is dirty, wash first with soap and water or another general cleaner. Then use a household disinfectant to kill germs. Follow manufacturer's instructions for application and proper ventilation to safely use the product. For phones or other electronics, follow the manufacturer's instructions for cleaning and disinfecting. If no instructions, use alcohol-based wipes or sprays containing at least 70% alcohol. Dry surface thoroughly. For more tips, visit cdc.gov.
Welcome back to the Benchwarmers podcast, where being all talk is actually a good thing. Now, back to the action. Or talk, I guess.
Welcome back to the program, everybody. I am still Lou Ruggieri. That is still Jose Ortiz. And this is still the Benchwarmers podcast. Appreciate you taking some time to spend it with us. Touched on the last three games. First, from NFL Super Wild Card weekend. The Browns beating the Steelers, if in case you haven't heard, which by now you probably have. The Saints blowing past the Bears, no surprise there. And the Ravens avenging their playoff loss from last year, beating the Titans 20-13. You can go back and listen to that if you'd like. We're part of the iHeartRadio podcasting app, Amazon Podcasts as well, and pretty much everywhere and anywhere, Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us there. This next group of games, I feel were better overall. There's one surprise, but in order, the Bucs, first off, beat the Washington football team. Not surprised here, I guess. This game, to me, there's a couple of takeaways from this game in that, number one, if I'm the Washington football team, was it Taylor Heineke?
Yep.
Looked incredibly good. He played so. I was actually towards the end of the game, I was kind of rooting for him. He was tough. He was quick. He was mobile. He was decisive. He just looked really good, and I was shocked because I thought without Alex Smith, I thought this game was going to be a blowout, and Taylor Heineke proved me and a lot of other people wrong. And Dwayne Haskins, safe travels, bud. Man, no one's going to even think about you come next season. The other thing, though, was that I felt like this game, and I think I texted you this, the Bucs. It felt like the Bucs should have hung about 45 points on this team, and in no small thanks to Chris Godwin for getting to pack his hands with him for the trip to DC. You know, he had 5 receptions. He probably should have had almost 10. He dropped. It felt like every throw that Brady tossed to him was one in his hands, one out of his hands. And overall, I mean, it's not confidence inspiring for this. You know, Ronald Jones didn't play. Leonard Fournette was pretty good, but if I'm Brady, you know, he went 22 of 40. I mean, that's not good, as you know, by Tom Brady standards. He did have 381 yards and 2 touchdowns, but you know, you're at a 50% completion ratio. That's not something you want to have going into the divisional round of the playoffs. So, while I'm not surprised the Bucs won, I am a little disappointed in how the Bucs won because this shouldn't even been this close.
It's funny. I kind of had a different feeling. They should have put up more points. Look, you put up 500 total yards on offense. That's a lot of yards. I know that it didn't translate into as many points as you would have liked. But what I took away from this is their offense is getting in gear. You're not going to expect Chris Godwin hasn't shown the tendency to drop a lot of passes, at least from what I've seen. Maybe I missed something, but you know, it happened this game. You know, it happens to every receiver. Have a bad game. He had 12 targets, only caught 5 of them. That's not going to get it done.
It's not good.
That's not good at all. But what I took away from this is what happens when you add a Hall of Fame quarterback to a good team. Because this was the same team last year, and they had Jameis Winston and couldn't compete for a playoff spot. And here they are, they won a playoff game, and I would say that the move has already paid off for them because he's going to come back next year, because they look good, and because it seems like they're just getting better right now. They put up a ton of yards, and listen, 31 points is not a small amount of points on a team that was supposed to have a pretty strong defense. Now, if I'm Washington, I'm happy with Taylor Heineke. I'm keeping him on the team as a nice backup. I mean, he's really proved that he belongs in the NFL and maybe deserves a shot to compete someplace for a starting job. But I'm doing everything in my power to make a trade for Matthew Stafford or Matt Ryan. We saw what happens to a bad team or a team that had good pieces and brought in a Hall of Fame quarterback in Tom Brady. I'm not saying that Matthew Stafford or Matt Ryan are in Tom Brady's class, because no one is. but these are two borderline Hall of Fame quarterbacks who, if you add them to the Washington football team, I can only imagine that they have to take the next step next season. If I'm Washington, I'm very, very happy with what happened this season.
Yeah, I mean, by comparison, Dwayne Haskins to Matt Stafford, he does look like Tom Brady by comparison if you're treating it earth. But I do think, overall, the Washington football team, if you think of where this team was a year ago, with the name change and all the scrutiny and the owner, basically strong-arming the team to picking the guy who went to school with his kid or whatever the situation was. And then just kind of up and down, and Ron Rivera with battling cancer the whole season, Alex Smith almost, dying and not sure if he's ever going to play again, and he plays again, and then just the amount of adversity that they had to overcome and end up winning, what ended up being the worst division in football and the worst division we've seen in quite a while. They still managed to put up they weren't embarrassed in this game. I don't think anyone expected them to win, and they looked good. And I thought that, Chase Young calling out Tom Brady, in the beginning before the game that could have went really bad. If they got blown out, I think Tom would have put the screws to them. But if they had won this game and Chase Young did that would have been a legendary epic shot. But not the case. But I think that it was enough to. It showed a lot of resourcefulness by the Washington football team, and I think they're in position. If they do, like you said, they upgrade at the quarterback position, and maybe, they upgrade at receiver a little bit, maybe in the draft, they're going to be a very good team for what looks like a pretty long time, depending on who that quarterback is. But Tampa,
the one thing. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go talk Tampa.
No, I was just going to say Tampa now, goes up. They go into New Orleans, and this is another game that I think. I guess not that it mattered this season because the Saints kind of put them in their place twice, but I feel like home field advantage, if that Superdome was filled, I don't think that the Bucs would have much of a shot in this game. But because it's going to be limited at best, I think that Tampa, it's hard to beat a team 3 times in a row.
That's the one thing. Yeah, and it's hard to beat Tom Brady 3 times in a row. I'm not even sure if a team has ever beaten. I'd have to look that up. I doubt a team has actually ever beaten Tom Brady 3 times in a row. It would seem unlikely. The last thing I'll say about just Washington football team, there were a couple other teams that lost this week, and you look at look at the Steelers, you look at the Titans even, where you don't really know where they go from here. How do you really actually get better? What are you really going to do? And it looks like the Washington football team is a different thing where it's just it just seems like there's so much room to grow. It seems like you could easily see them getting better next year, and that's a good position to be in following a loss.
Yeah, and speaking of a team that, what do you do from here? That leads us to the next game, the Rams beating the Seahawks in a shock, the shock of the weekend, as far as I'm 30-20. This game I don't know. I watched this game and I watched the highlights after, and I still don't understand how the Seahawks lost this game. I think that it had to do with, Russell Wilson had 6 completions halfway through the third quarter, which is just crazy. The Rams, Jared Goff gets knocked out by, John Wolford gets knocked out by Jamal Adams, and Jared Goff comes in and all of a sudden, starts playing well. Cam Akers has the game of his life.
Yeah.
But it's still, I still don't understand how the Seahawks lost this game.
Well, you get sacked 5 times and you're running for your life all the time. And if there's one thing that the Seahawks need to look at this year and improving, and I say it all the time, they have to improve this offensive line. He was sacked 47 times this year, which is the 3rd most in the NFL. One of the things that I'm looking at on this team is, and if I'm in the front office, I'm looking at the first 8 games of the season and the second 9 games of the season, or the final 9 games of the season. What happened? Over the first 8 games of the season, the Seahawks averaged 34 points per game. Over the final 9 games, they averaged 22 points per game. How does that happen when you have Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett? And then as far as this game is concerned, for Russell Wilson to only complete 40% of his passes, this to me is certainly a negative mark against Russ. He didn't really cook as they have liked to say all this season. But they clearly need to upgrade their offensive line in front of him. It just seems like and this is not the first year it's happened. Last few years, he just keeps getting sacked, keeps having to run for his life. And the thing that's sad is that they traded their first round pick this year to get Jamal Adams, and they still couldn't stop the run. They still couldn't stop the run. Not to say that Jamal Adams is supposed to be this run stuffer or anything, but you made an upgrade on your defense to think that was the one piece that was going to put you over the top, and it ends up being kind of a lack of defense that hurts you in this game. So the way they lost this game is by, as we were talking about it before, letting the Rams run all over them, and then not being able to get the big plays that they were getting early this season, and then also not being able to run the ball. It was a complete failure on offense and defense from this team. And to me, after the Steelers, this is the second most disappointing team of the postseason. I think the Steelers, being that they started 11-0, kind of have to be the most disappointing. But Seahawks are right there. I don't really know, other than drafting an offensive lineman and hoping and maybe investing some free agent some money in the offseason and upgrading the offensive line. You have to protect Russell Wilson more. If you give him more time, he's gonna be that much more dangerous, especially with DK Metcalf, who's basically unguardable. He had 2 touchdowns against Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah, I think that I have to give credit to the Seahawks defense in because of how they started the year. I mean, if you remember back, they were on pace to be historically bad. I mean, they were giving up just numbers that were unprecedented, and they did. The Jamal Adams trade seemed like a big price to pay, but that seems like it's working out for the most part. And then Carlos Dunlap picking him up, that defense turned itself around pretty nicely. This to me was more on the Seahawks offense. I mean, granted, I get it. The defense did give up 30 points, but
23 because it was a pick 6 too. So
that's right. Yeah. So I guess the Seahawks firing Brian Schottenheimer as their OC might be, indicative of what I'm talking about. That's a good piece of evidence to prove that what I'm saying is maybe they agree with. And maybe it's coaching too, because it just felt like, Pete Carroll he's been great, but I don't know. I mean, this team gave up, the penalties killed them. The Rams had 2 penalties for 15 yards. The Seahawks had 9 penalties for 60 yards. That's a killer. I mean, that's a nightmare.
Since going to just follow up on your Pete Carroll point, since going to the Super Bowl in 2014, where they lost on that legendary play where they didn't run the ball, he's 3-5 in the postseason since 2014.
Yeah, it feels like their running game is suspect, and Chris Carson is okay. I don't think that he's the answer. He looks good when he's out there, but it feels like he needs another piece. The receiving core, I mean, DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are a perfect 1-2 punch. They have decent tight ends. I mean, maybe they could upgrade there, but it just, I mean, I guess it's the offensive line because, Russ did not look great. He ran a lot, which is not something you want your quarterback to do. 4 rushes for 50 yards, which is good yardage-wise, but you don't really want your franchise all-world quarterback running for his life most of the time. So
only 2 quarterbacks were sacked more than Russell Wilson. So, yeah.
I don't know what you do if you're the Seahawks. I mean, I guess you hope that you hit it big in that, second, third, fourth, fifth round in the draft this year, because they're pretty strapped for I don't know how much. I don't know how much they're gonna be able to do, honestly.
Yeah, and one of the a lot of times you and I talk about when investing in the quarterback, not investing in the quarterback. One of the things that does happen when you invest in the quarterback, or really in any player for that matter, is that your roster kind of starts getting locked up a little bit, right? You're like, okay, well, what are we supposed to do now? Because we've already paid this guy to be this person. We paid this guy to be this person. We paid that guy to be this person. Now we have to hope that our draft picks can make the difference. And that's a tough gamble. Like, that doesn't, I mean, I don't know what the percentages are, of first and second and third and fourth round picks panning out to be Pro Bowlers or even close, but it's not good, especially when you're missing your first round pick. So yeah, it's gonna be a long off season for them, and then trying to figure out what went wrong and how they can get better.
And the Rams, I mean, next week we'll talk about the game coming up in a little bit. But the Rams, I mean, I don't know. We don't know. We still don't know the status of Jared Goff for next week. I'm going to assume he's going to play, him and Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald suffered a rib injury, I believe. Mm-hmm. And I expect both of them to be on the field. I mean, that's the thing is, Jared Goff was playing with one thumb, and you would think that it was Russell Wilson who had the broken thumb the way that it was going, because, I mean, they're just it was a very, very poor showing by the Seahawks, and I was shocked. I mean, I was genuinely shocked that this game went the way it did. I would have never in a million years would have thought that they would have lost this game.
Yeah, if I had to pick the Seahawks losing, I would have thought it would have been in more of a shootout, like a high scoring affair or something like that. And looking at the numbers right now, you're absolutely right. You have to put this 100% on the offense. I mean, Jared Goff was 9 of 19 with 155 yards. Now, Cam Akers had a nice game, 28 attempts and 131 yards. But yeah, this is on the offense. You got to put more points up. Russell Wilson, one of the best quarterbacks in the game. You've got to do more.
Yeah, and that leads us to our final game, or the first game, which feels like a lifetime ago. This was the first game on Saturday. The Bills eking out the Colts in a game that, I mean, for what the Bills have done and just blowing people out, I felt like the Colts lost this game far more than the Bills won it. And the Colts just looked like the better team top to bottom. They seemed like they played better, and it came down to a couple big decisions. The Colts decided to go for it on fourth down when they were on inside the 5-yard line, and they missed it. There was just a litany of decisions that I was like, why would you do that? What are you thinking right now? And Phillip Rivers didn't look bad. I mean, he didn't look great, but he looked serviceable, which is all you can really ask for. I mean, the offensive line kept him upright, and I think that the Bills I think Josh Allen, was the difference in this game, because he was the best player on the field. He threw for 324 yards, 2 touchdowns. He ran for another 54 yards. Stephon Diggs proving that he's just the man. 6 receptions, 128 yards, and a touchdown. This team looked complete, but they I don't know. I felt like this game could have went either way.
Well, yeah, when you win by 3, it absolutely could have gone either way. I think you have to just say that the Colts played very well. I don't think the Bills necessarily played poorly. I think the Colts played better than many of us expected, and maybe we were giving the Bills defense a little bit too much credit heading into this game. To me, you really hit the nail on the head. The Colts were just overly aggressive. They went for 4 fourth down conversions in this game, and I don't know how many with the averages. It cannot be that many. You go for 4 fourth down conversions. They converted 2 of them. They even tried and failed on a 2-point conversion. It feels like it's almost like if you know that you're going to lose, you're a huge underdog in this game, and we have to do anything possible to stay on the field and get more points. That's what it kind of felt like they were playing like, and maybe that's what they felt like. But I'm never a fan of going for it that often. There was a point where they scored a touchdown, and they could have gotten it to, I believe it would have been 24-17, and then they went for 2 for no reason. It doesn't even make any sense. Why would you go for 2 there? Yeah. And they did. So I don't know. I don't think there's any need to replace the head coach or anything like that. This is another team that you look at their pieces: Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman Jr., Nyheim Hines. When Paris Campbell comes back, hopefully stays healthy next year. You look at that defense, you look at the offensive line. They need to move heaven and earth to go get Matthew Stafford or Matt Ryan. Not that Phillip Rivers is bad. He actually played pretty well. I just think an upgrade at quarterback really, really unlocks this offense and kind of helps take this team to the next level.
or even Carson Wentz. I think he would be an upgrade at this point. But the added mobility, and I think
I'm worried about him.
I am too. It's not quite as good as the other two, but I think at this point, I think your arm is stronger than Phillip Rivers at this point. So I think Carson Wentz for sure. And the Titans, not the Titans. I'm sorry, the Colts. The Colts outrushed the Bills 163 yards to 96, which I thought was pretty impressive. And they dominated time possession. They had the ball 34 minutes. I mean, the Bills almost felt like they pulled a Chiefs on this one, where they were good when they had to be, and that was it. And I don't know. It left me wondering about what to think. Josh Allen looked good, but not great. He was the difference maker, but overall, it makes me worry for the next round with the Bills. I think the Bills are not in trouble, but it's going to be a tough game against the Ravens.
This whole thing just kind of makes me feel like this is the Chiefs' conference to win. It just feels like there's not really. I'm kind of feeling like Chiefs Packers already, because it just doesn't feel like there are really strong teams other than those two in either conference.
I don't know. I'll save our picks for later, but I might surprise you with a pick with the Chiefs. We'll see. But all right, we'll take a break. That's the end of hour one. We got to come back. We have some NBA to touch on in the midst of all of this NFL talk, and then we're going to move on to the aforementioned divisional rounds. We have some news and notes to cover with the NFL as well. There's some interesting changes in the works that have happened this week. So we'll touch on that and more right after this on the Benchwarmers podcast.